Hey folks, this is Kalani. Welcome back to Legion Alpha, probably the last day of the Legion Alpha, as I do believe it will go down tonight and it will come back on Thursday as a beta, a full-fledged beta. So that's cool, a lot more people are going to be invited apparently, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about legendary items. So if you didn't know, legendary items are going to be different come Legion. They're going to be very rare, whispers of ways to work towards them without it being complete RNG, but most of them I do believe are complete RNG, and they are bind on pick up, which means you cannot sell them, you cannot trade them, which makes them quite interesting, because you're not going to be able to throw down gold cap to suddenly increase your character's power. It will be completely random whether you have these extraordinary items or not. So a few of them are shared between everybody. A few of them are shared between armor classes, so leather, cloth, mail, plate. And then a few of them are just for your class and just for your spec, really, because they affect very specific abilities. So we're going to go through everything that's available on the alpha right now. Bear in mind that this is still alpha, which means that everything is subject to change. Everything might be a work in progress. Numbers won't be tuned, etc., etc., etc. You might not see any of these items come launch. Now, I'm going to go through as the character creation lists the classes. So I'll put that on the side. You can click your class if you want to go to, whichever class. But seeing as some of them are shared, I'm only going to preview them, once. And anything which isn't particularly interesting, we won't really look at its effect overall. So let's get started, because there are quite a few. So Sefu's secret is across everything. You see nothing limiting it there. Equip, successfully applying a disorient, fear, incapacitate, polymorph, root, sleep or stun, so pretty much any CC, to an enemy grants you 70% increased movement speed for 10 seconds, which would be very useful in PvP, but I do believe legendaries are turned off in PvP, so that's quite interesting. And you can see there, unique equipped for Legion Legendary 1. I guess I should mention that you can only equip one of these at a time, unless you have completed your order hall research, which allows you to equip a second. So let's move on. Another one which is across everybody. After not taking damage for 5 seconds, you gain an absorb shield for 25% of your max health for 30 seconds. It may occur once every 30 seconds. So let's wait 5 seconds. And there's the shield. I hope they have a new visual lined up for that. Sadly, it's just a powered shield right now, but never mind, let's take that off. We have some boots. It increases your movement speed by 100% of your haste and their plate, which doesn't really seem to do much, but we only have plus 4% haste anyway, so I guess that's why. We have Manaros Bloodletting Manacles. You heal 1% of maximum health for every 15 rage you spend. That's pretty obvious what it does. We have Ayala's Stone Heart. Execute is usable on enemies that have less than 35% health, so you can use it below 35 instead of below 20. Nagentus's Vertebrae. If Whirlwind hits 3 or more enemies, it hits them 2 additional times, which seems thoroughly broken, so let's give this a try. We need 3 targets. And that's a lot of AoE, which, quite frankly, is ridiculous. If you have that and there's an AoE fight, that I can see you're going to top the charts pretty much without contest there, and I'm scared a few of these might almost be required in certain instances. Let's hope that's not the case. Arcavon's Heavy Hand. Mortal Strike generates 15 rage. Now, I did play around with this one. So, Mortal Strike, as an arms warrior, costs 20, and with this legendary would generate 15. Now, the way that it does that is that it generates it first. I know that because you basically don't get anything from this legendary if you are rage capped, which obviously you don't really want to happen, but let's just get rage capped. Bear in mind this would obviously make the cost of Mortal Strike 5, but when you're rage capped it costs the full 20, because it generates the 15 and then costs 20. Obviously if you're rage capped it can't generate anymore and then costs the full 20. Weight of the Earth. All enemies damaged by your Heroic Leap are also affected by Colossus Smash, which again is going to be ridiculous for AoE. If you get to the point where you can have 2 of these and you have this and the Whirlwind, I think you're gonna pretty much just destroy everything. So that's fun. Bloodthirst increases all damage you deal by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, potentially quite powerful but also a little boring. Kian Arca, said that wrong but never mind. Equip, gain 10 rage whenever you enrage, which I am assuming is going to be very useful for Fury. Kazakhstan's Storm Scale Gauntlets. Odd. Devastate increases the damage done and rage generated by your next Revenge or Shield Slam by 20%, giving you a nice little bonus there, although again, a little bit boring. Destiny Driver. Intercepted attacks grant you and your intercept target an absorbed shield equal to 25% of the damage done by the attack for 10 seconds. So, I'm guessing intercept is protection and it's actually going to be intervene. Yes. So intervene is now intercept and would give you a shield whenever you intercept or intervene. Cool. And then we have Shield Slam extends the duration of Shield Wall by 2 seconds. I can tell you that Shield Wall lasts for 8 seconds. We can find it here in Prot. Lasts for 8 seconds and Shield Slam has a 9-second cooldown. So you're basically adding 2 seconds every Shield Wall unless you can reset Shield Slam later. So that's fun. Each enemy you hit with Thunderclap reduces the remaining cooldown on Demoralizing Shout by 1 second. Demoralizing Shout, we're back in Protection. It seems Protection has all the fun ones, or at least more. 1.5 minute cooldown demoralizes all enemies within 10 yards, reducing the damage they do to you by 20% for 8 seconds. Every target you hit with Thunderclap reduces that by 1 second, that cooldown. So that is actually pretty powerful, especially if you have a lot of targets and you need that back as quickly as possible. So that is Warrior. Let's hop to our next one, which is Paladin. So we have the ring which is shared, the neck which is shared, the boots which are shared, the haste boots, and then we get some of our new ones. Casting a non-greater blessing heals the target for 15% of maximum health. Blessing of Sacrifice, Freedom and Protection would heal the target for 15% of their maximum health, potentially very useful. Then we have Uther's Guard increases the duration of non-greater blessings by 40%, once again affecting those blessings. When you are at full health, 50% of any healing done to you heals your Beacon of Light target. Any healing done to you heals your Beacon of Light target. Cool. A lot of healing prevents overhealing there. Very nice. We have a Crown Jewel of Silvermoon. Judgment increases all healing you do by 20% for 5 seconds. Believe we do still have Judgment as a Holy Paladin. I'm currently a Holy Paladin, so we do have Judgment. Very nice. I'm wondering if you could really get any use of that from Ret. Or Prot, potentially. I mean, you're not going to be doing all that much healing, but 20% healing is nice. I guess if you don't have another legendary, you'll probably equip it anyway. Tyr's Hand of Faith reduces the cooldown of Lay of Hands by 70%, which is absolutely ridiculous. You'll be using that potentially faster than the debuff. Maybe. Lay on Hands causes forbearance for 30 seconds. Never mind. If you have that, you are basically unkillable. As long as you don't die within, what? Well, it's 7 minutes, so that'll go below 2 at the very least, I would think. If my stupidly quick math is right, which it probably isn't, but Avenger's Shield jumps to 2 additional targets. Again, a little boring, but I guess useful for any AoE packs. Each enemy hit by Avenger's Shield reduces the remaining cooldown on Guardian of Ancient Kings by 4 seconds. That would be your biggest cooldown as a protection paladin, so I guess just spam that Avenger's Shield and you'll get it quite a bit quicker. Heathcliff's Immortality. That's probably a Sword Art Online reference, which is cool to see. I'm surprised but not surprised. But equip, you take 4% less damage while standing in your consecration, making that consecration so much more holier than it was. Hammer of Justice deals 120k damage, give or take, and has 75% reduced cooldown when used against an enemy above 75% health. Wow. So, you can execute people above 75% health more often than below 20% health, as long as you have that legendary. See, that's one of the legendaries which actually breaks the game. That's what I like to see. While Avenging Wrath is active, you gain 1 holy power every 2 seconds. again, Retribution seems to be the one to get the overpowered stuff. Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm increase the damage of your next Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm within 4 seconds by 25%. Cool. Although 4 seconds is a bit of a short time, really, to get the holy power back, unless you have this shiny little finger. Those two are going to go together shockingly well. That is... 2 legendary seems overpowered. Then we have any attack which would kill you instead triggers a Shield of Vengeance at 200% the normal amount, then reduces you to 1 health. A Shield of Vengeance. I don't know the changes well enough. There's our Greater Blessing. Cool. I don't know what... Oh, Shield of Vengeance. Create a barrier of holy light that absorbs quite a lot of damage for 15 seconds. When the barrier is consumed, all damage absorbed is dealt as holy damage, divided across all enemies within 8 yards. So, you die, then you get a shield for a lot of damage which explodes at the end of it, and you basically kill everybody, I guess. At least in PvE. That's going to be ridiculous if that is the last hit on a progression boss on a really hard difficulty. That is going to be absolutely insane and cause a few people to be jealous, maybe. So that's Paladin. Let's look at the next one, which is Hunter. Now we've got the ring and neck once again, and then some mail. Standing still causes you to send deep roots into the ground, granting you 5% healing every 5 seconds. So it heals 5% of your max health every 5 seconds instead of granting you 5% healing. So it doesn't increase your healing, but it does give you health. Then we have the Shadowhunter's Voodoo Mask. Heal for 20% of your maximum health when you activate Feign Death, and then heal for an additional 5% of your max health every second afterwards for 10 seconds. We don't have Feign Death on the bards. Fantastic! Feign Death. There we go. That ticks for a good chunk. 5% every second. I'm guessing it just has the cooldown of Feign Death. Cool. As I know, most of these don't seem to have their own specific visual right now. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them are obviously using an old one, like the Voodoo Mask, but most of them are either rings or necks or wrists, or don't actually have their own. They're a copy. So maybe that'll change, maybe that won't, but that's why I'm not previewing a lot of them. Next we have Call of the Wild, reduces the cooldown of all aspects by 50%, which is incredibly powerful, as I will show you. Aspect of the Cheetah is a movement cooldown, which is nice, put that down to 1 minute. Aspect of the Eagle is the main damage cooldown for survival, which is pretty crazy. Then we have Aspect of the Turtle, which is your defensive cooldown, which is deterrence basically. That's on a 3-minute cooldown now, so down to 1.5 is quite strong. And then Beast Mastery also has an aspect which is the main damage cooldown, Aspect of the Wild. So Marksmanship is actually the only one which does not benefit from this, because their cooldown is True Shot. Roar of the Seven Lions. Bestial Wrath reduces the focus cost of all your abilities by 20%, so that's actually just moved to a legendary effect. Equip Dire Beast reduces the remaining cooldown on Kill Command by 3 seconds. Kill Command is a 7.23 second cooldown, and Dire Beast is an 11.6 second cooldown. So I guess you really only get one of those for each Kill Command, but still a nice reduction nevertheless. Then we have Equip Your Pet gains the passive abilities of all pet specializations and deals 10% increased damage. Once again, Water Talent is moved now to a legendary effect, probably the most powerful for Beast Mastery. Then we have the remaining cooldown on True Shot is reduced by 1 second each time you cast a damaging shot. Now, the current cooldown of True Shot is 3 minutes, and you're probably going to be firing at least 1 shot every second, so I guess that cuts it in half. Because for 1.5 minutes you'll be shooting in 1 shot every second, which would reduce the cooldown by 1.5 minutes. I guess if you fire more shots, you just cut off more time. Then we have Marked Shot has a 15% chance to not remove Hunter's Mark. So the way that Marksmanship currently works is that you mark a target and you fire Marked Shot at the marked target, and it removes the Hunter's Mark. Obviously, if you don't remove it, you would then be able to Mark Shot again. Mark Shot does stack up the very important vulnerability debuff, which stacks to 3. So, essentially, if you're really lucky, you could stack that vulnerability up to 3 on your very first Marked and Hunter's Mark shot. RNG. Cool. potentially useless. Everything we like in a legendary. Each enemy you hit with multi-shot increases the damage of your next aimed shot by 10%, stacking up to 20 times. So let's swap to marksmanship to try that out. Got a few targets here. My main interest here is whether this will stack repeatedly, and it does. So attacking the same 3 targets twice would give you 6 instead of just limiting you to 3. It stacks up to 20 times. Is it used on an aim shot? Yes, it is, which I guess answers the 2 questions that you might have about this legendary. Now where are we? Let's unequip that. And look at the next one. When you carve an enemy, that's in survival, affected by lacerate spreads to one other target hit by carve. So essentially you're spreading your dots. Then the first time harpoon hits a target, your damage done to the target is increased by up to 30% for 8 seconds based on distance to the target. Guessing that's the further that you harpoon, the more damage you do. So let's go relatively far away. Doesn't really tell us. That's disappointing. If it was percentage based on distance, that would be very helpful, but never mind. I would assume you do more damage the further away you were. Gain 30 focus when one of your traps is triggered. Very basic and a little boring, but potentially incredibly useful. Now let's move on to the next class. And next we have Rogue, which actually seems to have some of the least legendaries, but never mind, let's look at them. We have the ring once again, we have the neck once again, and then we have some leather waist. Your attacks cause an additional 100% damage as physical to enemies above 95% health. So you do double damage to something above 95% health, which would be absolutely ridiculous for questing, especially if you could then one-shot things. Your backstab and shadow strike deal 15% additional damage as shadow to all targets within 15 yards in front of you, making that a very nice cleave and AoE legendary. I like the niche uses, and basically they're powerful in a niche but not completely broken overall legendaries that we've got here. Very, very nice to see. While Tricks of the Trade is active, you deal 25% increased damage, which again, that effect has just gone to a legendary. Feint heals you for 30% of your maximum health over 5 seconds. Nice, it's definitely going to keep you alive. Remaining cooldown on Vendetta is reduced by 1 second for every 30 energy you expend. Very basic, very boring, another one of the reduced cooldown ones, but potentially incredibly strong. And your poisons and bleeds deal 40% increased damage to targets below 25% health, giving you a nice execute phase. Between the Eyes has a 20% chance per combo point to increase the damage of your next pistol shot by 850%. What? That's going to be in combat if we're talking about shooting people. Between the Eyes is a finishing move, and basically you shoot someone. Where have we gone? Between the Eyes has a 20% chance per combo point to increase the damage of your next pistol shot by 150%. So if you use a 5-point combo of Between the Eyes, your pistol shot, which usually... Where are we? Pistol shot usually deals about 20k, would absolutely destroy the target. Changing the way you play is also something I like with legendaries. Traxx's Tricksy Treads, that's just fun to say. Run through deals increased damage equal to 50% of your increased movement speed. So hopefully that would stack with things like sprint. You sprint and run through and you deal more damage. That's fun! Your finishing move extends the duration of Shadow Blades by 0.5 seconds for each combo point spent. Again, extending a damage cooldown. And the last one is Shadow Strike, which restores 10 energy plus an additional 1 energy for every 2 yards between you and your target. Very cool, very much like the Harpoon one for Hunters. I like to see that kind of thing. You basically have to play optimally to get the most out of your legendary. Very cool. Let's look at the next class, which is Priest. So once again we have the ring and the neck, which we've seen. So we have some cloth feet. Your instant cast spells have a chance to trigger Foresight, making your next cast time spell castable while moving. It's a chance, don't really know what that chance is, but cool nonetheless. When your penance damages an enemy, it also heals allies affected by your power word barrier. Holy wow, but not yet implemented. I wonder if they're trying to still make that work, because that sounds crazy. When your penance deals damage, the duration of atonement on yourself is increased by 2 seconds, and when your penance heals, the duration of atonement on your target is increased by 2 seconds. That's a nice little way to play around with how atonement's working. Plea increases your haste by 1% for each target with your atonement for 5 seconds. Stack atonement up on people and plea, and you get a lot of haste. Interestingly, plea is what a lot of people might be using to stack atonement on people, or to give atonement to people. So, if that stacks, we have plea. I wonder if it refreshes. It does refresh, so you can keep going as long as you have targets with plea. That's disappointing. We let it run off because PvP targeted people, but as long as you have people with atonement, it keeps stacking. So if you refresh your atonement on everybody, you just keep getting more haste. I'm wondering if this caps out somewhere, because the legendary didn't say that it did. I like legendaries that break the game. You'd end up with a crazy amount of haste if you could keep this. Obviously, keeping this going is not really something you're going to be able to do, because that literally just involves keeping atonement on people when you actually need to deal some damage to heal those people. But nevertheless, I like it. Power Word Shield reduces the remaining cooldown on pain suppression by 4 seconds. Standard and boring. Smite has a 30% chance to reset the cooldown on Penance, which is pretty cool. That's definitely going to be one to look for. Allies protected by your Guardian Spirit also receive healing from each of your active renews. If you have a lot of renews going as a Holy Priest, that is going to be absolutely ridiculous, and that Guardian Spirit is basically going to be an instant heal to anybody who receives it. While above 75% health, the cast time of your heal, Prayer of Healing, and Smite is reduced by 10%. Stay healthy and you'll get free haste. If Serendipity is triggered and the Holy Word is not on cooldown, Serendipity increases the damage and healing of your next cast of that Holy Word by 15%, stacking up to 5 times. Increases the duration of Renew by 6 seconds, which is the most interesting one we've seen by far. After Spirit of Redemption expires, you will revive at up to 100% health based on your effectiveness during Spirit of Redemption. Cannot trigger more than once every 10 minutes. That's fantastic. You can die, and I guess, depending on how AFK you are, you might come back to life. Cool! Your first Mindseer cast after entering Void Form spreads Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch to 3 enemies within 10 yards of your target, which just gives you free multi-dotting. That's OP. When you enter Void Form, every 4 seconds of remaining duration on Lingering Insanity grants you a stack of Void Form. So after looking at this, it seems as though when you exit Void Form or you get kicked out of it, you get a stack, or you keep your stack of Haste, which was your stack of Void Form. So while you're in Void Form, you get stacks of Void Form, which increases your haste, but when you leave Void Form, those stacks turn into Lingering Insanity, which can persist for up to 1 minute. But if you enter Void Form again quickly, every 4 seconds remaining on that 1 minute buff will change into Void Form stacks, giving you a head start on the next Void Form. So that's cool, and required a little bit of research, but next, each time Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch deal damage, your next Void Bolt grants 2% increased damage, stacking up to 100 times. That sounds basically as though you're going to get a really strong Void Bolt the first time you enter Void Form, because I don't think you're going to be able to tick those over very quickly while in Void Form because you spam Void Bolt. So, again, just free damage, really. Increases the maximum number of charges of Mind Blast by 2. Cool. Get charges of Mind Blast. Who doesn't want extra Mind Blasts? And healing from your Vampiric Embrace is increased by 250% while in Void Form. You basically become a raid healer, which every Shadow Priest always wants to be. Let's have a look at our next class, which is Shaman. So once again, the ring and the neck, which we've seen. We've already seen these legs. They heal you for 5% of your health whenever you stand still, which is really cool. And Chain Lightning deals 5% increased damage to each subsequent target, meaning the last person is going to die. Lava Burst deals an additional bit of damage over 6 seconds, stacking up to 5 times, giving Lava Burst a dot component. Earth Shock has a 30% chance to refund all of the Maelstrom spent, which is actually really important because you spend 10 to 100 and you deal damage depending on how much you spend. The more you spend, the more damage you do. So if you Earthshock at 100 and it refunds it, and you Earthshock at 100 and it refunds it, you basically get free damage. Who doesn't want free damage? Earthshock has up to a 50% chance, based on Maelstrom spent, to cause your next Earthquake totem to be free and deal 100% increased damage. So if you spend 100, you have a 50% chance to cause Earthquake totem to be free and deal more damage, which is your AoE. It's basically Earthquake, but now it's a totem. Damaging enemies with your Fire, Frost, or Nature abilities increases all damage you deal by 2% for 8 seconds. Which is almost copied directly from Diablo 3 and seems to be copied, or rather shared, across quite a few people. I'm guessing it's all the casters. Each element adds a separate application. If Crash Lightning hits at least 3 targets, you deal 10% increased damage for 10 seconds. That is the enhancement's AoE, so you AoE in front of you, and if it hits at least 3 targets, you deal more damage, which is actually quite interesting because you Crash Lightning anyway to increase the damage of Storm Strike. While Ghost Wolf is active, the remaining cooldown on Feral Spirits recovers 75% faster, which is just so pointless, but so fantastic. That is what I want to see in a legendary. Lava Lash deals 60% increased damage, while your weapons are enhanced by both Flame Tongue and Frostbrand, which is actually quite often if you take Frostbrand as a talent. We go to enhancement. Essentially, you're going to keep Flame Tongue up constantly, and you have a talent here which allows you to deal extra damage on each swing with Frostbrand. So if you have both of those up, you deal even more damage with Lava Lash. So if you get this legendary, you have to take that talent almost. So that's cool. Enemies hit by your Storm Strike become lightning charged for 15 seconds, zapping a nearby enemy every 1 second for quite a bit of nature damage. Only really useful if you're cleaving, but cool nonetheless. If you're for 15 seconds, you can Storm Strike more often than once per 15 seconds, especially if you get the buff, which it's a 15-second cooldown, more or less, but you can reset it. So if you're cleaving, you can use it on one, then use it on the other, and they'll both be sparking each other. So that's fun. Cleaving is going to be crazy. Allies within your healing range receive 10% increased healing from your other healing spells, which is always nice, free healing. Chain Heal reduces the mana cost of your next healing surge by 25%, giving you a new way to spam heals. Healing Wave and Healing Surge increase the healing of your next Chain Heal by 20%, basically the other way around, but it stacks up to 5 times. Very cool. Increases the duration of Healing Stream Totem, Healing Tide Totem, and Spirit Link Totem by 20%, giving you the most AFK heals out of anybody, which is the Shaman way to play. Casting Riptide on a target below 40% health resets the remaining cooldown on Riptide. Really cool panic healing, actually. That is going to be incredibly powerful, especially if Riptide ends up being quite a strong heal. Sweet, so let's look at the next class. Next we have Mage. So we've got the Ring, which, you know, CC. We've got the Amulet, which is the shield. We've got the Boots, which gives you a castable while moving buff if you use instant casts, and then we get the Mage stuff. After casting Blink, you gain an Absorb shield equal to 30% of your maximum health. While you are not in a party or raid, Time Warp has a 75% reduced cooldown and will not cause temporal displacement, meaning you can go crazy all the time. Arcane Barrage grants you 5% of your maximum mana per arcane charge spent, which is an interesting way to get your mana back. Arcane Missiles has a 10% chance to make your next Arcane Blast cast within 5 sec cost no mana, which again is quite ridiculous. If Arcane is playing pretty much exactly the way that it was, which I do believe it is, you get a free Arcane Blast, meaning you don't spend your mana. You don't need to recover it as quickly. Quite potent. After dropping below 25% mana, your mana regeneration is increased by 10% for 15 seconds, giving you a nice window to recover everything very quickly. Increases the range of Dragon's Breath by 25 yards. We have to try this one out. So let's go to Fire. We've got Dragon's Breath by 25 yards. So you can use that on pretty much everyone. So equip it. We've got Dragon's Breath. And it hits everything. It's a shame it doesn't quite change the animation, but still fun to have. Enhanced Pyrotechnics also affects Scorch, so let's have a look at what that passive is. Each time your fireball fails to critically strike a target, it gains a stacking 10% increased crit strike chance, so you get free crits, basically, but it also works for Scorch, meaning you can fish for crits very easily. After consuming Hot Streak, your next non-instant Pyroblast cast within 10 seconds deals 100% additional damage. So fire a free one and then cast a really big one for a stupid amount of damage. That's what we like to see with Fire Mage. When you cast Frozen Orb, the remaining cooldown on Blizzard is reset, giving you very potent AoE. Your Ice Lance increases the damage of your Ice Lances by 10% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Basically spam Ice Lance. Once again, it's a shame they don't work in PvP. While Ice Veins is active, you gain 1 charge of Fingers of Frost every 5 seconds. Fingers of Frost is obviously the thing which gives you more damage on your Ice Lances because it treats them as if they are frozen, but how long does Icy Veins last? It lasts for 20 seconds, so over the duration you will get 4 stacks, which pretty nice. Obviously if you get it more than once every 5 seconds you might actually waste it. So that is Mage. Let's move on to our next class. So we have our Boots, which is Foresight, we have our Ring, which is the CC, we have our Absorb Shield Ring. Now we get to the Warlock stuff. Agony deals its full damage 25% faster, basically free damage, once again. Corruption slows enemy movement by 60%, giving you a snare, very useful in PvP, but I don't think they work in PvP. Each enemy afflicted with your Unstable Affliction increases all damage you deal by 2%, giving multi-dotting a whole new ballpark of damage. That's crazy. Casting Unstable Affliction on a target who is not already afflicted by Unstable Affliction has a 30% chance to refund the Soul Shard cost. So, if you don't refresh it, if you reapply it, there's a chance that it won't cost you a Soul Shard. Cool, interesting. Again, changes the way that you play, potentially. Demonic Gateway now casts instantly, and you can use the Demonic Gateways twice before triggering a cooldown. Call Dreadstalkers refunds 2 Soul Shards, which I think Call Dreadstalkers costs 2 Soul Shards. So call Dreadstalkers 2 Soul Shards, so it basically becomes free, as long as you have the 2 to begin with. I'm guessing that's how it would work. Doom deals 5% increased damage for each demon pet you have active, which is baffling because a Demonology Warlock is going to have a stupid amount of pets active. That's basically what they're going to try and maintain, is a lot of pets. And Doom, whoo, that's going to hit like a truck. For 25 seconds after casting Summon Doomguard or Summon Infernal, you and your minions deal 30% increased damage, making that... wow, that is a cooldown on top of a cooldown, really, there, isn't it? Each Dreadstalker, Wild Imp, or Beholder you summon reduces the remaining cooldown on Summon Doomguard and Summon Infernal by 2 seconds. Which, again, you get that quicker. If you had these 2, you are going to wreck everybody's face. Chaos Bolt has a 35% chance to strike an additional enemy within 30 yards. A free... wow, that's basically a free Havoc, isn't it? That is basically a free Havoc that I don't see how they're going to balance some of these. Casting a damaging fire spell has a 25% chance to generate a Soul Shard. So anything in destruction has a chance to generate a Soul Shard. Wow. That, again, how are they going to balance these? Enemies marked by your Havoc take 15% increased damage from your single target spells. Marked by your Havoc take 15% increased damage, so not only do you cast it twice, essentially, you also deal more damage to the Havoc target. And if you don't have a second target, you can just Havoc your single target and deal extra damage anyway, by the sounds of things. Enemies affected by your Rain of Fire take 7% increased damage from your fire spells, which again, just free damage. Let's move on to the next class, which is the Monk. So we have our CC ring, we have the 100% extra physical damage to enemies above 95% health waste, which we've seen before, it's leather. We have the neck, which gives you an absorb shield, and then we get to the monk stuff, I believe. Each enemy you hit with Breath of Fire reduces the cooldown of Fortifying Brew by 1 second up to a maximum of 4 seconds, so you can hit up to 4 people for it to count. Fortifying Brew is, of course, your big cooldown as a Brewmaster. When you use Keg Smash, the remaining cooldown on Breath of Fire is reset, which is kind of stupid. Breath of Fire, Brewmaster, is a 15-second cooldown. Keg Smash is a 8-second cooldown, so essentially a Breath of Fire goes down to an 8-second cooldown. And if you have that other one, you're going to have your very big cooldown back very quickly. Purifying Brew instantly heals you for 25% of the purified stagger damage. Free healing as a brewmaster. Wondered where that healing went. Increases the duration of stagger by 3 seconds, which means you take less damage per second, but obviously for longer. Zen Meditation now lasts through 3 melee attacks, which is absolutely bafflingly stupid. You take no damage, basically, with Zen Meditation. You take 60%, okay, it's not quite as powerful as it was. You take 60% less damage for 8 seconds, and being hit by 3 melees would then break it on a 5-minute cooldown. So, if there's 3 big swings from a raid boss, you basically mitigate most of it, which is disgusting. Each time Enveloping Mist heals an ally at full health, its healing bonus spreads to up to 2 nearby allies. So once again, preventing some form of overhealing, which is really nice to see. The remaining cooldown on Revival is reduced by 3 seconds each time you cast Renewing Mist, which is ridiculous. Revival is the Mistweaver's biggest cooldown heal, and it basically heals everybody in the raid to full. You're going to have that more often. I'm sure every other healer is going to love you topping the meters. Rising Sun Kick causes your target's melee attacks to refresh your heal over time effects for 8 seconds. So you kick somebody, they hit you, and you heal for more. Soothing Mist heals a second injured ally within 15 yards for 50% of the amount healed, giving you free healing. Each time Soothing Mist heals, the absorb amount of your next life cocoon is increased by 1%. That's a very nice oh no button. Well, your oh no button becomes an even bigger oh no button, which, free healing, it's always nice. I feel that's pretty much what all the healer ones are going to be. Thunder Focus Tea also grants Effuse, Enveloping Mist, Essence Font, Renewing Mist, and Vivify 2 extra charges at random. Everything sounded good until the at random. That's going to either be really powerful or kind of pants. Reduce the cost of Fist of Fury by 2 chi. That would be a Windwalker. Fists of Fury costs 3 chi, so it would then cost 1 chi, making that potentially very powerful. The duration of Storm, Earth and Fire is extended by 0.6 seconds for every chi you spend. Storm, Earth and Fire is currently a 1.5 minute recharge, and it lasts for 15 seconds. So each time you spend chi, 0.6 seconds really isn't a lot. I wonder how powerful that's actually going to be. Sounds kind of not. Touch of Death can be used a second time within 3 seconds before its cooldown is triggered, which is confusing because Touch of Death kills people. After 8 seconds, the target will take damage equal to your maximum health, reduced against players. So that's a 2-minute cooldown to deal a bunch of damage based on your health. So if you have that legendary, you can use it twice. I wonder if the after 8 seconds resets itself, meaning you would not be able to use it on the same target. Let's see. So we Touch of Death, and then Touch of Death. A more powerful spell is already active. So you can't do it to the same target, meaning you would have to cleave it. I guess that's nice to know. Let's put that back on. The amount of damage that Touch of Karma can redirect is increased by 150% of your maximum health, allowing you to redirect so much more damage. Increases the movement speed bonus of Windwalking by 15%. It lets you run faster. Which is disappointing because we don't have anything which stacks off run speed like some of the other classes, but never mind. Let's have a look at the next class. Finally down to the Druids. We've got the Ring that we've seen before, we've got the Waist that we've seen before to deal double damage above 95% health, we've got the Neck we've seen before which gives you an Absorb Shield, and we should get to the Druid stuff. Bear in mind I think they have the most because they do have 4 specs. Increases the effect of Astral Influence, Feline Swiftness, Thick Hide and Ysera's Gift by 50%, giving you a bunch of, well, everything on top of everything, really. Each time your Innovate target casts a spell, you gain 15 astral power, so that's going to be to do with your Boomkin. Solar Wrath increases your nature damage by 4% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, which is free damage, essentially. Star Surge and Starfall each have a 20% chance to make the other free, which is mana reliant. Oh, it's going to be the new resource actually, isn't it? Astral Power, which makes it much more powerful than it would have been if it was mana. Star Surge reduces the Astral Power cost of your Star Surges by 7 for 3 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. Which, I guess that's useful. Cool. Increases the damage and radius of Thrash by 25%, because who doesn't want to AoE from further away? Increases the maximum energy by 100 while in cat form. Wow. That lets you... That's crazy. You can pool twice the energy in cat form. Tiger's Fury restores an additional 40 energy over 4 seconds. Critical damage from your bleeds have a 40% chance to trigger Primal Fury. Primal Fury is going to be feral. Let's have a look at Primal Fury. When you critically strike with an attack that generates a combo point, you gain an additional combo point. Damage over time cannot trigger this effect. Well, it can with that legendary. Cool. 3 combo points. Frenzied Regeneration heals you for an additional 15% of your maximum health over 5 seconds. Defenses on top of defenses. Thrash can stack up to 2 more times. Very cool. Give you more dots. Survival Instincts gains 1 extra charge and recharges 20% faster. Once again, cooldowns on top of cooldowns. Increases the instant heal when Life Bloom expires by 200%. I'm guessing that means by. Which is interesting, again, because typically you wouldn't let Life Bloom expire, so with this legendary, I guess you would. Allies healed by your Wild Growth have a 20% chance to also gain Rejuvenation. With the amount of targets that Wild Growth hits, hopefully that's going to be, at least one will get it. Or if it's a 20% chance to trigger all of them or nothing, I wonder which would be more powerful. Swift Mend extends the duration of your heal over time effects on the target by 10 seconds. A quick heal can extend all of your heal over time effects. That's quite powerful. Tranquility heals targets below 50% health for 50% more, because topping the meters was never easier. Rejuvenation cast on a full health target will reset to its full duration each time it heals the target until the target takes damage or 10 seconds has elapsed. So you can pop Rejuvenation on people for 10 seconds and it won't lose any of its duration as long as they don't take damage. Which seems like it would set up a crazy amount of preparation. You could prepare so much better because your rejuvenation essentially has 10 seconds added to it. Very cool. Let's go to the next class. Probably the one most people are interested in. It's the Demon Hunter. So we have the same ring, we have the same waist, which on a Demon Hunter is probably going to be disgusting, the double damage over 95%. We have the neck, which gives you an absorbed shield if you don't take damage. And then we have Demon's Bite generates an additional 1 to 20 fury, because everybody likes RNG. So that's either going to be super pants or super broken, because you cap out at 130. If it gives you 1 extra, not so great. If it gives you 20, let's kill people. The remaining cooldown on I-Beam is reduced by 0.5 seconds each time it deals a critical hit, which is disgusting, because I-Beam is ridiculously powerful, if I can find it. Is Havoc I-Beam? There we go. I-Beam is on a 45-second cooldown, and you basically deal most of your damage. It's actually there. You deal most of your damage during I-Beam. It is that powerful. But if you crit and it takes time off, that is kind of broken, and would make you stack crit up the wazoo if you had that legendary. Fell Rush deals 20% increased damage to each subsequent target hit. Now, Fell Rush is your little sprint forward. It's this one. So basically you deal more damage if you go through the same target, which is really weird because you don't want to be moving all that much as a melee on a boss, but quite a bit of Demon Hunter requires it, so that might actually be a really nice legendary. Gain 50% leech while Blur is active, which is your defensive cooldown. 50% leech is a lot. That is insane. So basically if you're gonna die, hit your defensive cooldown to take less damage and heal all of your health back. Throw Glaive deals 50% increased damage with each ricochet. So we can watch these targets and see them take extra damage. Boom, boom, boom. A little fast to really see, but never mind. Extra damage is always nice. Gain 20% leech while Demon Spikes is active. Leech seems to be a common theme. Demon Spikes is a 15-second recharge, so wow, you're going to have that up a lot, and it is your little cooldown, really, as a tank Demon Hunter. I could see that being the most popular one. That is kind of crazy. You take 20% reduced magic damage while Immolation Aura is active, because who doesn't like more cooldowns? The instant initial damage from your Immolation Aura reduces the remaining cooldown on Fiery Brand by 3 seconds for each enemy hit, so you get your cooldowns faster basically. Tank Demon Hunters rely a lot on their brands and sigils and runes. Fiery Brand is a 1 minute cooldown, which deals a lot of fire damage and reduces the damage they do to you by 40% for 8 seconds. So that makes it quite a potent cooldown, and obviously if you're reducing the cooldown on that cooldown, you're going to have a very happy time as a tank. Metamorphosis resets the remaining cooldown on all your sigils, so once again that is for the tanks. You've got Sigil of Chains, which activates after 2 seconds. All enemies affected are pulled to the center and snared. Sigil of Flame deals damage and additional damage over time effect. Sigil of Silence silences all enemies affected by the sigil. So, I think that's all of them. Yeah, so you reset all of those when you use your biggest cooldown, which is always fun. Soul Cleave reduces the remaining cooldown on a random sigil by 8 seconds. Soul Cleave is your AoE, or your standard ability, I do believe. If we go to Soul Cleave, viciously strike all enemies in front of you for quite a bit of damage. It doesn't have a cooldown and 40 pain, meaning that you can chunk time off of these very important sigils, but sadly it is at random. And that is the Demon Hunter one. So let's have a look at our last class, which is the Death Knight. So we've got the ring, we've got the neck, we've got the boots, which increase your movement based on your haste, and then we get some fun Death Knight stuff. Increases the duration of Anti-Magic Shell by 100%, and any damage it absorbs heals you. Very ridiculously strong. Wow, that is absurd. Bone Shield increases your maximum runic power by 60, which seems useful, I think. You deal 5% more damage and receive 5% more healing while standing in your Death and Decay, because the death is just everything a Death Knight loves. Death Strike refunds 25% of runic power spent if it heals you for more than 10% of your maximum health, which basically if you use it right, it probably should, so it's going to cost 25% less, which is pretty powerful. Heart Strike reduces the remaining cooldown on Vampiric Blood by 3 seconds. Blood Death Knights do get Heart Strike back, by the way, and using it is apparently really good because it gives you cooldowns back. Empower Rune Weapon gains 1 additional charge, and its recharge time is reduced by 20% because getting your cooldowns faster is the most important thing for DPS. Howling Blast deals 40% increased damage to enemies affected by Remorseless Winter, so if you AoE, your AoE deals more damage, which very important for a Frost Death Knight. Obliterate, I still don't think it's going to beat the Warrior though. Obliterate has a 15% chance to refund 2 runes, and it only costs 2 runes, I do believe. We can look at that is in Frost. Obliterate costs 2 runes, so chance for Obliterate to be free, which is your spam ability, so 15% chance, and you do stupid damage, really. While Pillar of Frost is active, you deal 25% increased frost damage, cooldowns on your cooldowns. Dark Transformation also empowers your Gargoyle and Army of the Dead for 20 seconds, increasing their damage by 100%. This, I have to see. Dark Transformation is now a cooldown. We've got everything that we would need to test this right here, so it empowers everything. Better equip it first. So, we can Army of the Dead. We can summon a Gargoyle, attack, and Dark Transformation. And sadly it didn't really change anything. They're all still little ghouls and it's still a little gargoyle. It didn't change anything, but it does buff them all. So I guess that's cool. Festering Strike has a 30% chance to refund 1 rune. Festering Strike costs 2, so not quite as potent as the Obliterate one. Your ghoul's melee attacks have a 15% chance to activate one of your runes, which you're going to have it up all the time, so that seems incredibly potent. Scourge Strike has a chance to burst an additional 1 to 5 Festering Wounds. So you create them with Festering Strike and then you blow them up with Scourge Strike. Basically they deal damage, so you can deal a lot of damage or not so much damage. So RNG. But that's it for the legendary items. That's all the classes, and this video is probably far too long. Sorry you didn't get to see some of them, but some of them seem to be quite boring. A lot of them seem to be pretty powerful, but remember that these are going to be incredibly rare. Chances of getting more than one within the first however long for it actually to mean anything is potentially quite low. So don't get your hopes up, I guess, although, as I say, there is whispers of a way to work towards them so it's not all RNG based. But you can see the shutdown timer is there just in time, so that's me done for this video. That is all the legendary items, but if you do have any questions or queries about the legendary items that weren't answered in this, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll try to do some research, try and get back to you on that. If you'd like to see anything from the alpha or the beta when it comes back up, please leave that in the comment section below as well. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.